Thank you, Jay, for the prelude, a special selection as we celebrate Black History Month. My name is Mary Sussman, and I wish to welcome all of you as we begin our worship together. A special welcome to our visitors who may be joining our virtual service for the first time today, and newcomers who are returning. As we continue to share our worship time together in this format, we ask that you be patient with any technical glitches. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. It is good to be together. I have a few brief announcements this morning. First, I ask you to check the weekly flash for all the ways we are remaining connected during this time. There is still much happening, so please take time to read the flash. Happy Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year. Chinese New Year is celebrated around the time of the Lunar New Year and is also called the Spring Festival. Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year are two of the most widely celebrated festivals, celebrated around the world and here in New York and on Long Island. Traditionally, a time to honor ancestors and deities. This is the year of the ox. The ox denotes the hard work, positivity, and honesty that will be manifested in all of us in the coming 12 months, according to astrologers. So happy New Year. An announcement from our wonderful DRE Danielle Burby. Beginning on Sunday, February 28th, the religious education start time will be pushed back by 10 minutes to allow for an easier transition from the service to RE class for families. From February 28th forward, RE classes will begin at 11:30 on Sunday mornings. This morning is one in a series of 11 Sunday services led by guest speakers that started in October 2020 and run through May 2021. In these services, we are exploring elements of the proposed 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. The Black Lives of UU Organizing Collective has urged all UU congregations to consider and adopt this 8th principle, which reads as follows. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness, by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. We are exploring the elements of this proposed principle throughout this worship year during Sunday services, in small group workshops, and in reading groups in order to better understand what it means so that we can vote on it as a congregation later this year. Today's service will be led by Reverend Teresa Soto, our guest minister, who's joining us from West Coast time. Thank you for getting up early for us. And now, I invite you to relax into your bodies, quiet your minds as we breathe together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words are on your screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. And now I invite you to sing along as Jay plays our affirmation.
On different roads we travel here to meet as one on common ground, to seek the truth with open minds, with loving hearts and helping hands.
Good morning, fellowship. It's my honor this morning to welcome and introduce our guest preacher, the Reverend Teresa Soto. They are the called senior minister of First Unitarian Church of Oakland, California, and the author of Spilling the Light, Meditations on Hope and Resilience, that came out of Skinner House in 2019. On a personal note, their very public ministry on social media has personally been keeping me afloat in this difficult year, and I'm very grateful for their ministry of presence. From their own website, their own congregation's website, it reads, they are invested in working collaboratively with the congregation to live more deeply into their mission and vision. They've said that, and I'll quote, while I am prepared to lead a congregation, I want to do it in partnership with them, their dreams, their ideas, and their dearest values. They also serve as co-chair of the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Association and co-vice president of diverse revolutionary Unitarian Universalist multicultural ministries, we often call simply DRUM. DRUM is a UU people of color ministry, an anti-racist collective bringing lay and religious professionals together to overcome racism through resistance and transform Unitarian Universalism. They're a graduate of Quinnipiac University School of Law and Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of our seminaries. Their partner is the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, who you've heard me quote as well over the years. Reverend Soto comes to ministry after careers in education and law. Sometimes people ask what the connection is between those fields. Simply that all three are different paths to making the world a better place. It is an honor and a joy to have Reverend Soto with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Jude. I think I need to know what comes now.
The chalice lighting.
Oh, well, let me look for it then. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. When the whole world crumbles, you still have to build a new one out of all the pieces that are still here. Remember that you are still here. The human heart beats approximately 4,000 times per hour. And each beat, each throb, each palpitation is a trophy engraved with the words, "You are still alive. You are still alive. Let us act like it." This morning, I'd like to tell you the story of Anansi and his sons. I want to remind us all that I don't come to it as an expert. I'm not an African person. So when we listen to it, what I want us to listen for is the shared wisdom behind all of that. You see, Anansi was the spider god, and he had 6 sons, and they all had different talents. The first son was named Trouble Seer, and he could see trouble from very far away. The second son, Road Builder. He could build roads through anything. The third son was named River Drinker. River Drinker could make rivers completely dry with not a drop of water left behind. The fourth son was called Animal Skinner, and he was very good at removing the skins from animals that were hunted for food. Number 5, Rock Thrower. Well, he could throw a rock so accurately that he could hit a duck very far away. And finally, Ground Pillow, who could lie on the ground and make it very, very soft. One day, Anansi went on a long trip. He was gone for 1 week, 2 weeks, then a month, and the sons grew worried. Trouble Seer looked far and wide. "Do you see him? Do you see him?" asked his brothers. Trouble Seer said, "Yup." He fell into a river on the other side of the dark, dangerous, dense leaves. So many trees that the sun has trouble getting through. Upon hearing that, the road builder immediately built a road through all those trees. And then they came to the river. River Drinker said, "This is a small drink for someone like me." And he drank it right up. In the middle of the river, there was a fish. And in that fish, they could hear Anansi howling, "Someone get me out of here!" So Animal Skinner jumped right in and he got Anansi out of the fish. But as soon as he got him out, well, an eagle came by and plucked Anansi right up into the sky. So, you know what happened next. Rock threw a rock, and knocked Anansi right out of the eagle's claws, talons, and he fell, and he fell, and he fell, and Ground Pillow knew just what to do. He lay on the ground and made it very soft. Then they all went home. Anansi got a good night's sleep, and everything was a lot better. Well, he thought, one of my sons deserves a prize. Whoever was most instrumental in saving my life. As he walked through the woods, he saw a beautiful round object. It glowed, and Anansi thought, this is it. This is the beautiful present. But which son should it be? And they all started fighting. Ground Pillow said, me, of course. Who broke the fall? Animal Skinner said, me, of course. Who got him out of the fish? Troubleseer said, well, you know. No one would have even known where he was if it wasn't for me. And they fought and they fought and they fought, each according to their own talent. And Anansi said to the sky god, can you help me figure this out? They're really mad about it. And the sky god listened for a while. And then he said, nothing. He picked up the moon and went away, put her in the sky where we still see her today. The brothers missed out on their prize in part because they could not see how essential they were to one another. Let us see to the wisdom in that story.
In a few moments, we will sing Spirit of Life. Following the hymn, we will have a time of silent meditation and prayer. Please join me now in singing Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come Will you join me in a moment of prayer and meditation? We gather today with gratitude and strength in our hearts. Gratitude because we remain together. Strength not because it comes to us naturally, but because we receive it from one another and we give it to one another. And in this way, we build community. We bring to this moment the cares of our heart, which include struggle in our country, include people experiencing isolation and dehumanization, include loss, fear, and pain related not only to the pandemic we experience, but also to the human condition. To these things we give our love, to these things we give our care, and for these things we ask for grace. In all these things we give thanks and say, Amen.
It is that time in our service when we can offer up names of those whom we wish to hold in our thoughts and prayers. Please share these special intentions in the chat box now. For Ed, for Abby, for Don Schmitz, Don, Sue, Aaron, Jay, Jeff and Jessica, Tom, Concheta, Naomi, Vincent, Sean, Joe, Noreen, Vicky, Alfred, Eddie Mitchell, Earl and Martha, Steve, Ginger, Wendy, David and Hope, Lauren's dad, Patty, David's brother Jan, Katie, Lorraine and Tony, Amy Cuccio, Nora Palumbo, Nico and Noah, Diane, B, Mark Klein, Tegan, may we hold all these and the names not spoken on our hearts.
Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one
Our split plate recipient for February is the NAACP. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP Huntington chapter, is an interracial American organization created to work for the abolition of segregation and discrimination, to oppose racism, and to ensure African Americans their constitutional rights. The Huntington chapter works to educate all political candidates to support policies that improve access to quality education and economic opportunity, criminal justice reform, the environment, healthcare, and youth empowerment, with a dedication to removing race-based oppression and discrimination from society. By supporting the Huntington chapter, you are supporting their mission to remove all barriers of racial discrimination through education, empowerment, and the democratic process. You can contribute by sending a check to the UUFH, or you can check out our new and improved donate button on our webpage. You can also use the Give Plus Church app on your smartphone. Thank you for your generosity. And now a reading entitled Paul Robeson by Gwendolyn Brooks. That time, we all heard it, cool and clear, cutting across the hot grid of the day, their major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bale and barge, and other symptoms of an old despond. Warning in music words, devout and large, that we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond.
Thank you so much, Mary. Gwendolyn Brooks was one of the leading voices in the Harlem Renaissance, and she just reminds us we are each other's. I'd like to begin today with words from Adrienne Marie Brown. She says, "It's a gift when someone speaks their truth and you can see where they can grow and move in with love. It's a gift when you speak your own truth and others move in with love to show you where you can grow. Don't forget that we learn to move by falling down a million times. Don't forget you were taught most of the things you now believe and teach others. Don't dispose of each other. Turn and face the conversations we still need to have. Change and be changed." The town of Centralia, Pennsylvania had a messy problem: their garbage. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, makeshift dumps were popping up around the town. But when garbage began to spill in the graveyard, people began to complain to the city. The city had a great idea. There was an abandoned strip mine in town. Why not use that as the official dump? For a while, that worked okay. People had the sense that they were throwing their garbage away. Then one tiny thing happened that changed everything, and not for the better. On May 27th, 1962, someone lit a match and set the garbage in the strip mine on fire. Unfortunately, that garbage was sitting on a seam of coal. The coal underground caught on fire. Of course, the people tried to put the fire out. They tried to dig it out, pour sand in, but nothing worked. The fire is still burning. In underground coal mines at depths of up to 300 feet, over an 8-mile stretch of 3,700 acres. At its current rate, It could burn for over 250 years. Cool, weird, scary. What does it have to do with our practice of Unitarian Universalism? Centralia, Pennsylvania had 1,000 residents, but now the town is full of toxic fumes, carbon monoxide, and sinkholes. In 1992, the governor took the land to be owned by the government. There are 7 people still living there, but when they leave, the town will be empty. In an attempt to throw the garbage away, the people of Centralia destroyed their community by the way they tried to deal with the garbage. What they didn't know was that there is no such place as a way. I was born on April 30th, 1972, in a small hospital in Belgium, where my parents were stationed on an army base. That day, I weighed 2 pounds and 14 ounces. The doctors told my parents that I was going to die and that they would make arrangements. After 12 hours, the doctor said that maybe I wouldn't die, but I was going to be a vegetable. We don't talk that way anymore about people, but that's what they said back then. After 12 more hours, the doctors said that maybe I wouldn't be a vegetable, but I would probably never walk or talk or be potty trained. After 12 more hours, the doctor said that I would probably be severely intellectually disabled and might someday be able to work in sheltered employment. My mother says that I taught myself how to read when I was 3, beginning with headlines and stories from the newspaper. Eventually, I became a teacher of languages, learning English and Spanish. Then I became a lawyer, learning stories of law and applying words and ideas to complex problems. All that began with my parents' certainty that imperfection didn't make me disposable. After visiting doctors and specialists, my parents received the news that I have cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy happens when brain cells responsible for muscle control and movement either fail to develop appropriately or die as a result of injury, like lack of oxygen during the birth process. It can be a stable condition. Thankfully, I do have a life and a body that provide me with opportunities to move through the world, not as someone who is sad about what isn't possible, but rather as someone who is curious about what else is possible. While cerebral palsy has presented challenges in my life, it has also left room for asking important questions. Who is a person possessed with inherent worth and dignity? How do we live into the fact that there is no such place as a way? People occasionally ask me what led me to become a minister. This is one of the elements of my mission in life, to proclaim and affirm that everybody, and indeed everybody, has built-in value and is a vessel for honor and respect. Attitudes toward people who are different than society expects have only changed slowly over time. In the early 20th century, progressives, including Unitarians, were enthusiastic about eugenics, the idea that society should be improved by selecting only desirable people to reproduce. Unitarian clergy inspected prospective couples for marriage to make sure they were normal physically and mentally, whatever that meant to them at the time. The renowned Unitarian activist John Haynes Holmes encouraged his fellow ministers in the Liberal Ministers Association of New York to perform nothing but healthy marriages for the conservation of the normal family, so that in the interest of improving society, defectives did not propagate. Haynes Holmes was using his philosophical perspective to justify disposing of people. Haynes Holmes wrote, Nothing is more important to my mind in our modern treatment of the question of marriage than to use our powers of social control to prevent many people from marrying, those, namely, whose marriage for one reason or another can be nothing but a tragedy. Let's consider the reasons to challenge these beliefs. For starters, it is essential for me to be clear and precise with you about this exact thing. My body is not a tragedy. No one's body is a tragedy. Bodies like mine are not defective. Disabled bodies and what we might consider average bodies are some of the infinite ways to be human. We must identify and incorporate this truth in order to move toward equity and justice. Even though Unitarian Universalists mean well, and it is easy to ignore the barriers that don't affect us, it is important for us to think together about how we devalue the presence of some folks. I want to invite us today into an ethic of indispensability. An ethic of indispensability, the practice of treating each person as essential in community, asks us to be authentic and do fearless self-inventory. We must do more than notice the mistakes and emphasize the differences of others. Part of our work is to confront the ways that we participate in the very systems of oppression that we are trying to dismantle. This includes all the ways we leave people out, leave people behind, and cut them off. We are accountable for barriers to community precisely because there is no such place as a way. During World War II, German troops invaded the island of Crete and overpowered and killed the resistance. One day, a 6-year-old boy found the wreckage of a German motorcycle. The mirror was broken into many pieces. He spent hours trying to put them together, but he couldn't. He saved the largest one and smoothed it on a rock. He was fascinated by reflections and loved shining light into shaded corners. That boy, Alexander Papaderos, grew up to be a teacher of peace. One day at a lecture, someone asked him, "What is the meaning of life?" He took that old, smooth, circular mirror out of his wallet and answered, "I am a fragment of a mirror whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light into the unlit places of this world, into the clouded places of human hearts, and change some things in some people." Can we do the same? Shine light into our own hearts first, do reflection and make corrections, using the light, taking action when you know something is wrong. The clear knowledge that we are people in development gives us more compassion for other people when they behave badly. What are the ways we are leaving people out, leaving them behind, or cutting them off in any given moment? What might we do to act in a different way and bring them back in? It is by keeping covenant with one another that we build, brick by brick and moment by moment, the beloved community. There is no magic wand. It's unfortunate. It's our ongoing work that's fortunate. The people in communities who don't keep covenant and break their promises cannot be managed simply by punitive action or by withholding connection and support. Rather, we must say no to actions that harm community, or no to the actions, but not the people. There is no such place as a way for them either. We have had to decide in our communities how we respond to the issue of hate. One obvious example is an active Nazi and neo-Nazi mobilization. Being a neo-Nazi is not a belief acceptable within the practice of pluralism because it is destructive. Targeting specific people for harm because of their skin color, ethnicity, or religion, and other intrinsic aspects of identity, like queerness and disability. We are the ones responsible for holding steady the good boundaries that care for and strengthen our communities. We must form faithful responses that allow for the health and well-being of every person by putting a stop to harmful behavior. What about after? How do we reckon with people doing harm and making amends? There's an ancient wisdom story in the book of Luke about a man who had 2 sons. The younger brother said to his father, "Dad, listen, I want what's coming to me now. Right now." He meant inheritance. It seemed likely that the younger brother would take the money and waste it. The thing that the younger brother hadn't learned was what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. The father relented, dividing the property between them, and it wasn't long before the younger brother packed his bags and left for a distant country. There, undisciplined, self-indulgent, and drunk, he wasted away everything he had. But even there was no such place as a way. Being broke and hungry brought him to his senses. He said, "Those farmhands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am, starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, 'Father, I've made mistakes that can't be fixed, hurting you and offending God. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand.'" We are often on this precipice. A relationship once damaged can either be transformed or discarded. When we discard relationships, we discard people. Do you know what happened next? The son journeyed home and started his speech about having done wrong and not being worthy. His father wasn't listening. Instead, calling to the servants, "Quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then get a grain-fed heifer, the best we have. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son has returned. We gave him up for lost, and now he is found." How relieved and happy the person and the community who can exercise their love by welcoming someone back. The dad's joy was palpable and irrepressible, and the celebration, complete where the barbecue happened. Let that joy and welcome back remind you that you, people around you, are meant for love. Even if you can't be proud of all of your choices, you're still meant for love. People don't have to be perfect to be awesome or to be loved. In fact, it turns out that things aren't going to end up perfect if we try and try and try harder. But instead, we must keep strengthening our integrity. The process won't be perfect, and that's okay. According to Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd in her book, After the Good News, underneath the will to mutuality, there's a will to perfection and a will to be personally justified, a will to be effective, and in the end, through all of our carefully calibrated strategies, a will to win the game that was never meant to be a game at all. Winning isn't always possible, but transformation is. Our communities must imagine new levels of connectedness in which we are clear that every person, as they are, is valuable, in which we preserve connection and human dignity, even when we have to say no to bad behavior, and yes, to remaking promises to one another when we break them. Our hope for the present and future lies specifically in our ability to move forward together. Henry Giroux explains that Paulo Freire, the liberation educator, conceived of hope as the practice of witnessing an act of moral imagination that encourages people to be at the edge of society and to think beyond existing configurations of power. In order to imagine the unthinkable in terms of how they might live with dignity, justice, and freedom. We are invited right now to the edge to imagine the most dignity, justice, and freedom your life and your community can hold. I chose to bring you this word as you explore the proposed eighth principle, because the fact that there is no way makes the eighth principle essential. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Some people will tell you that things are fine the way they are. An investigation by National Public Radio found that 135 unarmed Black people have been killed by the police since 2015, often by police with red flags on their record. This qualifies as a public health emergency on which Unitarian Universalists should take just and healing positions, but also actions. People will try to tell you that there's just no more room or care for white people in Unitarian Universalism. This is a manipulative lie. Researchers quantified the impact on Black, Indigenous, and people of color in terms of years of life lost, a way of measuring premature deaths that gives greater weight to death at a younger age. And what they found is that an average of 31,960 years of life are lost annually in the US due to police shootings. I'll say that again. 31,960 years of Black, Indigenous, and people of color lives are lost annually. You are called to more than this. You are smarter than to invent sides when what is at stake is each and all of our humanity. Our lives are embedded in a greater fabric that is woven with the threads of our individual lives. What happens if we pull one thread out of the fabric? There will be a hole. You are needed. Remember that as we are moving toward a clear hope, we are bringing as many folks with us as possible. According to Giroux, it is a notion of hope grounded in a celebration of human agency and a full-scale attack on the fear of freedom. That's you, grounded in your community. There is no way for you or anyone else as we engage in this vibrant hope. You have a blessing to bring to the world. Bring it imperfectly, but bring it now. Let it be so. Let us see to it. And now let's extinguish the chalice. We put out the flame here that it will continue to shine in our hearts. Here they are. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection. our concerns, our care for each other, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving.
Wait, don't leave. Thank you, Jay, for that beautiful music in honor of the Lunar New Year. And thank you all for joining us this morning in worship. It was good to be together. Please stay on now and join us for Fellowship Hour, where Reverend Soto will be staying and joining us. Fill your coffee cup and then join us for conversation and connection. Thank you.